The massive hall of the Intergalactic Academy of Sciences stretched across 3 kilometers of polished crystal floors. Minho stood at the entrance, his mouth hanging open as he watched thousands of alien students filing through the great doors. Some floated on energy fields, others crawled on multiple legs, and a few simply materialized from thin air. He had seen aliens before, of course. Earth had been part of the Galactic Coalition for 30 years now. But seeing this many in one place still made his heart race. "Stop gawking," Hunwoo muttered beside him. The older human administrator wore a crisp suit and carried a datapad under his arm. "You're representing Earth today. Try to look like you belong here." Minho nodded and straightened his jacket. He did not feel like he belonged here at all. Back on Earth, he had been an average student at best. His grades were decent, but nothing special. He loved animals and spent most of his free time watching nature documentaries and volunteering at shelters. When he barely qualified for the decennial xenobiology examination, everyone had been surprised, including himself. The exam happened only once every 10 years. It was the most difficult biology test in the known galaxy. Species from 47 different worlds competed to prove their knowledge of alien life forms. No first-generation species had ever passed it. First generation meant any civilization that had joined the coalition less than 100 years ago. Humanity was still very new to the galactic community, and most other species saw them as primitives who barely understood their own planet. "There must be thousands of students here," Minho whispered as they walked deeper into the hall. 3,000. 247 to be exact, a melodic voice said from above. Minho looked up to see a crystalline being floating down toward them. The creature had 6 limbs and skin that sparkled like diamonds in the light. "I am Professor Diona Velkara. You must be the human candidates." "Yes, Professor," Hyunwoo said with a slight bow. "This is Minho. He will be taking the examination today." Dayoon's multiple eyes focused on Minho, studying him carefully. "Interesting. Your species is quite young to attempt this test. The last human who tried scored in the lowest percentile. Do you truly believe you can succeed where others have failed?" Minho felt his face grow hot. "I will do my best, Professor." Dayoon's crystalline face was impossible to read. "The test begins in 1 hour. You should find your station and prepare yourself mentally. The examination lasts 6 hours and covers biology from all known regions of space. Most students do not finish even half of the questions." After Dayoon floated away, Hyunwoo placed a hand on Minho's shoulder. "Do not let them intimidate you. You earned your place here." Minho was not so sure about that, but he nodded anyway. He made his way through the crowd, following the holographic signs that led to his assigned testing station. Along the way, he overheard snippets of conversation in dozens of languages. His translator implant worked overtime to keep up. "Did you hear? They say question 47 is always impossible," said a voice that sounded like grinding rocks. "My instructor told me the test includes biological samples from extinct civilizations," another voice chittered. "Humans taking the exam? What a waste of a testing slot," someone laughed. Minho tried to ignore the comments. He found his station in section 12, row 43. The testing area was a sleek white pod with a comfortable chair and a massive holographic display screen. He sat down and waited as the hall slowly filled with more students. A Thrasian took the station next to him. The insectoid being had multiple compound eyes and chitinous plating across its body. It glanced at Minho and made a clicking sound that his translator interpreted as amusement. "A human. I am G1. This is my 3rd attempt at the examination." "3rd?" Minho's eyes widened. "You have taken this test 3 times?" "Indeed. My species processes information 10,000 times faster than yours, yet I have failed twice. This test is designed to challenge the greatest minds in the galaxy." Jiwan's mandibles clicked together in what might have been a smile. "No offense, but your kind has no chance. You still think in linear time. You have not even mapped all the species on your own planet." Minho wanted to argue but found he could not. Jiwan was right. Earth's oceans alone contained countless undiscovered species. How could he possibly know about alien biology from across the entire galaxy? Another human sat down a few stations away. Minho recognized him immediately. Kyung-ho was famous among Earth's scientific community. He had published 3 papers on molecular xenobiology before he turned 25. If anyone from Earth could pass this test, it would be him. A tone rang through the hall and suddenly everyone fell silent. A being made entirely of swirling energy appeared at the front of the massive room. Its voice echoed directly in Minho's mind rather than through his ears. "Welcome, students of the Galactic Coalition. I am Examiner Yunji. You have each earned the right to attempt the decennial xenobiology examination. This test will measure not just your knowledge but your ability to think, adapt, and understand life in all its forms across the universe." The energy being pulsed with different colors as it spoke. "The examination contains 100 questions of increasing difficulty. You have 6 hours. Use your time wisely. Be warned that question 99 has never been correctly answered in the history of this test. It has stumped professors with 300 years of experience. It has defeated computer systems capable of processing quintillions of calculations per second. We call it the impossible question." Whispers filled the hall. Minho felt his stomach twist into knots. An impossible question? What was the point of including something that could not be answered? "The purpose of the impossible question," Yunji continued as if reading his thoughts, "is to remind you that the universe always has mysteries yet unsolved. How you approach the unknown reveals more about you than any correct answer ever could." Yunji's form brightened, filling the entire hall with light. "You may begin." The holographic screen in front of Minho flickered to life. Question 1 appeared, showing a 3-dimensional image of a creature with tentacles and bioluminescent spots. Multiple choice options floated beside it. Minho took a deep breath and started reading. The question asked about the creature's respiratory system and how it adapted to high-pressure environments. He thought carefully and selected what seemed like the most logical answer. The next question appeared. Then another. And another. Hours passed. Minho found himself lost in the rhythm of the test. Some questions were easy. Others made him think hard, and many left him completely baffled. He did his best using logic and whatever knowledge he had gained from his studies. Around him, other students worked in focused silence. Some finished questions in seconds. Others stared at their screens for long minutes before answering. When question 99 finally appeared on his screen, Minho had been testing for 5.5 hours. His brain felt like mush. His eyes hurt from staring at the holographic display. He was ready for the test to be over. Then he saw what was on the screen and everything changed. The holographic projection that appeared on Minho's screen showed a small creature, no bigger than a human child's toy. It had soft-looking fur covering its entire body, 4 legs, a long tail, and 2 triangular shapes on top of its head that might have been ears. The creature sat in a neutral gray space, its body language relaxed but alert. As Minho watched, the image began to move like a video recording. The creature yawned, revealing tiny pointed teeth and a pink tongue. Then it lifted one front paw and began licking it, running the wet paw over its face in a grooming motion. After a moment, it stretched its body long, arched its back, and then curled into a tight ball with its tail wrapped around itself. Below the projection, text appeared in glowing letters. Question 99. Identify the species, planet of origin, evolutionary niche, and primary survival mechanism of the creature shown above. Provide detailed biological analysis to support your conclusions. Minho stared at the image. He looked at the creature from every angle as the hologram rotated slowly. The fur pattern showed stripes of different shades. There was a distinctive marking on the creature's forehead that almost looked like the letter M. Its paws had soft pads underneath, and what appeared to be retractable claws. Around the examination hall, Minho heard the sounds of confusion. Keyboards clicked rapidly as students searched databases. Some candidates muttered to themselves in various languages. A few made sounds of frustration. "Impossible," someone hissed nearby. "The genetic markers do not match any known classification system." Minho glanced over at Jiwon's station. The Thracian's many eyes were moving rapidly across its screen, processing information at incredible speeds. But even Jiwon's compound eyes showed what Minho thought might be confusion. The insectoid being's mandibles clicked together nervously. Further down the row, Minho could see Kyung-ho working frantically. The brilliant human scientist had multiple windows open on his holographic display, running complex genetic analyses and comparing the creature to thousands of known species. But Kyung-ho's face showed increasing frustration with each passing minute. Minho turned his attention back to his own screen. He watched the creature move again. It stood up, walked a few steps with a graceful gait, then sat down and began grooming its tail. There was something elegant about the way it moved, something familiar. Professor Dayun's voice suddenly echoed through the hall, though Minho could not see where the crystalline being was located. Students, remember that xenobiology requires more than just data analysis. It requires understanding of behavior, environment, and evolutionary pressures. Sometimes the answer is not in the genetic code alone. Minho looked more carefully at the creature's behavior. The grooming was methodical and thorough. The way it moved suggested a predator's grace, yet the size indicated it probably was not an apex predator. The yawn showed those sharp teeth, so it was likely a carnivore or at least an omnivore, but the way it curled up to rest suggested a prey species that needed to stay hidden and protected during vulnerable moments. These were contradictory characteristics. Predator and prey. Hunter and hunted. How could one creature be both? More time passed. Minho noticed other students starting to give up on the question. Some simply marked it as unsolvable, and moved on to question 100, which was apparently much easier. Others sat staring at their screens with defeated expressions. A tall being that looked like it was made of living water raised its hand. Examiner, is this creature perhaps from a civilization that is now extinct? Is that why we have no records of it? Yunji's energy form appeared near the ceiling of the hall. The creature existed within recorded history. That is all I will say. The water being slumped in its chair, creating small waves across its body surface. Minho closed his eyes and thought hard. He tried to push past the tiredness in his brain. He had studied hundreds of alien species in preparation for this test. He had memorized evolutionary patterns, biological systems, and ecological niches from dozens of worlds. But this creature matched nothing he had learned. He opened his eyes and watched the hologram again. The creature was now cleaning between its toes with its tongue, a surprisingly flexible maneuver. Then it paused, ears swiveling as if listening to something, and its pupils suddenly dilated wide before narrowing to thin slits. Those eyes. Minho leaned closer to the screen. The eyes were large relative to the skull size, positioned for good forward vision rather than the side-facing eyes of a prey animal. Predator eyes, but the pupils changed shape dramatically based on light conditions, suggesting the creature hunted in various lighting situations. Dawn and dusk, perhaps. That would make it a crepuscular hunter. The tail movement caught his attention next. When the creature walked, the tail stayed upright with just the tip curved over. When it sat, the tail wrapped around the body. Tails served many purposes in nature: balance, communication, temperature regulation, and fat storage. This tail seemed to do all of those things. Minho began taking notes, writing down everything he observed. Retractable claws suggested the need to keep them sharp. That meant a climbing species, or one that needed weapons for hunting. The soft paw pads indicated quiet movement, stealth. The flexible spine allowed for quick direction changes during pursuit of prey. But none of this helped him identify what species it was or where it came from. Across the hall, a professor he did not recognize stood up from their observation post. The being had tentacles instead of arms and skin that changed colors with its mood. Currently, the skin showed patterns of deep purple and gray, which Minho's cultural database suggested meant confusion and frustration in that species. 200 years I have studied xenobiology, the professor announced to no one in particular. 200 years and I have never seen anything like this creature. The biological systems make no sense. It should not be able to survive with such conflicting adaptations. Another professor nearby, this one resembling a floating jellyfish, pulsed in agreement. The musculature suggests incredible flexibility and jumping ability, yet the bone structure seems too light to support high-impact landings. The dental structure indicates a carnivore, but the digestive system appears designed for a more varied diet. It is as if someone took parts from multiple species and combined them randomly. Minho felt his confidence sinking even lower. If professors with centuries of experience were baffled, how could he possibly figure this out? He was just a kid from Earth who liked animals. He did not have the advanced education or the processing power that others in this room possessed. He glanced at the time remaining. 35 minutes left. Most students had already finished the test and were sitting quietly, waiting for the examination period to end. Others had clearly marked question 99 as unsolvable and moved on. Taejin, a senior student from Volcara that Minho recognized from orientation, stood up and stretched his 6 limbs. His crystalline voice carried across the hall. The impossible question lives up to its name once again. I have taken this test 3 times now, and each time it defeats me. I believe it is designed not to be answered, but rather to teach us humility in the face of the universe's complexity. Several students nodded in agreement. One by one, they began marking the question as unsolvable, treating it as a philosophical exercise rather than an actual problem to solve. Minho looked back at his screen. The creature had finished grooming and was now kneading at the air with its front paws, pushing in and out rhythmically. Its eyes were half closed, and a strange rumbling sound seemed to emanate from its body, though the hologram had no audio component. Minho could almost hear the sound in his imagination. That kneading motion, that rumbling, those eyes that closed with contentment. Something stirred in Minho's memory. Something from long ago, before he ever dreamed of taking a galactic examination. A flash of a younger version of himself, standing in a place filled with cages and the sounds of animals. The memory hit Minho like a wave crashing over him. He was 12 years old again, standing in the Seoul Animal Shelter on a rainy Saturday afternoon. His sister Borum worked there as a volunteer every weekend, and sometimes their mother let him tag along to keep Borum company. The shelter was always noisy, filled with barking dogs and chirping birds. But that day Borum had taken him to the cat room, a quieter space with climbing structures and soft beds. She wanted to show him something special. "This is the new one that came in yesterday," young Borum had said, opening a cage near the window. Someone left her in a box outside. "Can you believe it? She is so sweet." Minho remembered reaching into the cage carefully. A small creature with orange and white fur had looked up at him with large green eyes. The markings on her forehead formed a distinct M shape. She had stretched, yawned to show tiny teeth, and then rubbed her head against his hand. "What is she doing?" young Minho had asked. "That is how cats show affection," Borum explained. "She is marking you with her scent. It means she trusts you. Watch this." Borum had scratched behind the creature's ears, and immediately a rumbling sound filled the air. That is called purring. Cats do it when they are happy and content. The creature, the cat, had then begun kneading against Minho's arm with her front paws, pushing in and out rhythmically. "Why is she doing that?" he had asked. "Kneading," Borum said with a smile. "Baby cats do it when they nurse from their mother. Adult cats keep doing it when they feel safe and happy. It is like they are making biscuits." Young Minho had laughed at that description. He spent the next hour playing with the cat, watching her chase a toy on a string, seeing her incredible reflexes as she jumped and twisted in the air. Her flexibility had amazed him. She could turn her body in ways that seemed impossible. "Cats are special," Borum had told him as they prepared to leave. "They are perfect hunters, but small enough to also be hunted, so they have to be smart. They can see in almost complete darkness, hear sounds we cannot detect, and always land on their feet. But the coolest thing about them is how they chose to live with humans thousands of years ago. They domesticated themselves because it was easier than hunting all the time." "What does domesticated mean?" young Minho had asked. "It means they made a deal with us. They hunt mice and rats that eat our food, and we give them shelter and meals. But unlike dogs, cats are still half wild. They could survive without us if they wanted to. They just choose not to because living with humans is comfortable." The memory faded, and Minho found himself back in the examination hall, staring at the holographic creature on his screen. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear blood rushing in his ears. The markings, the body shape, the grooming behavior, the kneading, the way the pupils changed shape, the retractable claws, the flexible spine, the predator grace combined with prey-sized caution. It was a cat, a common earth cat. Felis catus, the animal that millions of humans kept as pets, the creature that lived in apartments and houses across Earth, sleeping on furniture and demanding food at inappropriate hours. But that was impossible. Why would the galactic examination include an Earth animal, and not even an exotic Earth animal, but one of the most common pets on the planet? It had to be a trick. It had to be a different species that just happened to look similar. Minho watched the hologram again, looking for differences. But everything matched. The grooming pattern was exactly how cats cleaned themselves. The stretching motion, the way the tail moved, the ear positions, even the way it curled up to rest was identical to every cat Minho had ever seen. His hands trembled as he reached for the input keyboard. Could he really submit an answer saying this was just a regular Earth cat? The greatest minds in the galaxy had been studying this creature and could not identify it. Professors with centuries of experience were baffled. advanced computer systems found no matches. And Minho, a barely qualified human student, thought it was just a pet from his home planet? He would look like a fool. No, worse than a fool. He would look arrogant, claiming to know something that had stumped the entire galactic scientific community. Hyunwoo would be embarrassed. Earth would be embarrassed. They would probably use him as an example of human ignorance for decades to come. But the more Minho watched the hologram, the more certain he became. This was not just similar to a cat. This was a cat. Every single behavior matched perfectly. The way it groomed, starting with the paw and working up to the face. The stretching position with the back arched high. The kneading motion. The tail position communicating mood. Taijin's voice drifted over from several rows away. The question is philosophical, not literal. We are meant to write about the limits of knowledge and the importance of recognizing when a problem has no solution. Other students murmured in agreement. Minho saw several of them typing long essays about humility and the vastness of the unknown universe. 20 minutes remained. Minho thought about his sister Borum. She had worked with cats for years and could identify breeds and behaviors at a glance. She would laugh if she saw this question. She would immediately recognize what it was. Borum always said that cats were underestimated because they were so common. People thought they understood cats, but actually, cats were full of mysteries and contradictions. They are perfect hunters that act like babies, Borum had once said. They are independent animals that demand constant attention. They sleep 20 hours a day but can explode into action instantly. They are prey-sized but have no fear. They manipulate humans into feeding them, sheltering them, and cleaning up their waste, all while making us think we own them. Cats are survival experts. Primary survival mechanism, the question had asked. Minho's fingers moved across the keyboard almost without his conscious control. He started typing, his heart pounding, knowing that he was either about to make the biggest fool of himself in galactic history, or possibly, just possibly, about to do something remarkable. He wrote about the species classification, the planet of origin, the evolutionary niche. He explained the biological adaptations, the retractable claws for hunting and climbing, the flexible spine for quick movements, the specialized eyes for low-light hunting, the sensitive whiskers for navigation in darkness. He described the digestive system designed for a meat-based diet, but flexible enough to handle some plant matter. He detailed the vocal range capable of producing dozens of different sounds for communication. Then he came to the primary survival mechanism, and he paused. This was the part that would sound the most absurd to the other test takers. But it was also the truth, he wrote. Primary survival mechanism is domestication and behavioral manipulation of caretaker species. This creature evolved alongside humans and developed behaviors specifically designed to trigger nurturing responses in human psychology. The purring sound mimics the frequency of a human infant's cry, triggering protective instincts. The large eyes and small face create a neotenic appearance that humans find appealing. The creature has adapted to live in human settlements, providing minor pest control in exchange for reliable food, shelter, and protection from larger predators. Unlike forced domestication, this species essentially domesticated itself by exploiting human emotional responses. Minho sat back and read what he had written. It sounded crazy. It sounded like he was claiming that a tiny Earth pet had somehow outsmarted and manipulated the entire human species into taking care of it. But that was exactly what cats had done, according to historical and genetic research. 5 minutes remained. His finger hovered over the submit button. Once he pressed it, he could not take it back. His answer would be recorded and judged. If he was wrong, everyone would know. Earth's reputation would suffer even more than it already had. But if he was right... Minho pressed the submit button. The screen flashed green, confirming that his answer had been recorded. His stomach twisted into knots immediately. What had he done? He had just told the most prestigious scientific institution in the galaxy that their impossible question was actually a common house pet from Earth. Question 100 appeared on his screen. Something about bacterial reproduction in methane environments. Minho could barely focus on it. His mind kept returning to question 99 and the image of the cat. He answered question 100 as best he could and then sat back, waiting for the examination to end. The final tone rang through the hall 3 minutes later. All the holographic screens went dark simultaneously. Students began standing and stretching, some looking relieved, others appearing defeated. The energy being Yunji appeared at the front of the hall once more. The examination is complete. Your answers have been recorded and will be analyzed over the next 3 days. Results will be announced at the ceremony in the Grand Hall. You are dismissed. Minho gathered his things and walked toward the exit on shaky legs. His mind raced with doubts. What if the creature was not a cat, but some alien species that just happened to look exactly like one? What if this was a test to see if students would make assumptions based on appearance? What if he had just committed the greatest scientific error of his life in front of the entire galaxy? Minho! Kyung-ho called out, jogging to catch up with him. The brilliant scientist looked exhausted, his hair messy from running his hands through it during the exam. That last question was brutal. How did you answer it? Minho hesitated. I identified it as an Earth species. Kyung-ho stopped walking. What, an Earth species? Which one? A cat. Felis catus. A domestic cat. For a long moment, Kyung-ho just stared at him. Then he laughed, but it was not a kind laugh. You are joking, right? You think the impossible question that has stumped the galaxy's greatest minds for decades is just a common cat. I know how it sounds, Minho said quietly. But everything about it matched. The behavior, the body structure, the grooming patterns. Kyung-ho shook his head in disbelief. Minho, I ran genetic analyses on that creature. I compared it against every species in the galactic database, including all Earth animals. There were no matches. The genetic markers were completely unknown. Maybe the database is incomplete, Minho suggested weakly. The database contains information from 47 civilizations across thousands of years. It is not incomplete. Kyung-ho sighed and put a hand on Minho's shoulder. Look, I know you did your best. But that answer is going to hurt Earth's reputation even more. They will think we are either arrogant or ignorant. Kyung-ho walked away, leaving Minho standing alone in the corridor. Other students passed by, chattering in various languages about the exam. Minho caught fragments of conversation. Question 99 was truly impossible this year. I wrote an essay about the philosophical implications of unsolvable problems. My analysis suggested it might be from a lost civilization in the outer spiral, but I had no evidence to support that theory. Nobody mentioned cats. Nobody even mentioned Earth animals. Minho felt his face burning with embarrassment. He had made a terrible mistake. The next 3 days were torture. Minho barely slept, constantly replaying his decision in his mind. He should have written a philosophical essay like the others. He should have admitted he did not know. Instead, he had claimed expertise he did not actually have, based on nothing but a childhood memory and a feeling. Hyunwoo tried to reassure him. Whatever happens, you took a chance. That takes courage. But Minho could hear the disappointment in the administrator's voice. Hyunwoo had hoped that Minho might at least perform respectably, maybe pass the easier questions and fail gracefully on the hard ones. Instead, Minho had made a bold claim that would probably be proven wrong in front of everyone. On the morning of the results ceremony, Minho considered not attending. But that would be even more embarrassing. He put on his formal clothes and made his way to the Grand Hall with Hyunwoo. The Grand Hall was even more impressive than the examination hall. It had a ceiling that showed real-time views of space with stars and nebulas swirling overhead. Thousands of seats faced a central stage where the examiners would announce the results. Representatives from all 47 member species attended, along with media crews and scientific observers. Minho found a seat near the back, hoping to be invisible. But Hyunwoo insisted they sit in the Earth delegation section, which was unfortunately near the front. Minho could feel eyes on him from other species, the human who had taken the exam. The one they had heard about. Ambassador Seojun sat in the row ahead of them. He was an older man with gray hair and sharp eyes. He turned to greet them with a polite smile. Minho, I hear you completed the examination. That is an accomplishment in itself. Thank you, Ambassador, Minho said, though the words felt hollow. The ceremony began with examiner Yunji appearing on the central stage, the energy being pulsed with colors as it spoke. Welcome to the results ceremony of the decennial xenobiology examination. This year, 3,247 students from across the galaxy participated. A holographic display showed statistics as Yunji continued. The average score was 42%. The examination had a completion rate of 68%, meaning that 32% of students did not finish all questions within the time limit. Minho watched the numbers float in the air. He wondered where he fell in those statistics. Probably near the bottom. 12 students achieved a passing score of 75% or higher, Yunji announced. The hall erupted in applause. 12 out of 3,000 was incredibly impressive. These students represent the following species: 3 Velkari, 2 Carthan, 2 Thrasian, 1 Morthian, 1 Velkari-Carthan hybrid, 1 Zentari, and Yunji paused for effect. 2 humans. Shocked silence fell over the hall. Then whispers started immediately. 2 humans? That was impossible. No first-generation species had ever produced even 1 passing student, and now humanity had produced 2. Minho felt his heart racing. Kyungho must have been one of them. That made sense. But who was the second? There had only been 3 humans taking the exam. Could it possibly be? However, Yunji continued, and the hall fell silent again. Only 1 student in the history of this examination has ever correctly answered question 99. Only 1 student successfully identified the creature, its origin, its evolutionary niche, and its primary survival mechanism with complete accuracy. The hall was so quiet that Minho could hear his own heartbeat. Every being present leaned forward, desperate to know which advanced species had finally solved the legendary impossible question. That student, Yunji said, its energy form brightening until it lit up the entire hall, is Minho of Earth, human. The silence lasted for 3 full seconds. Then chaos erupted. Beings jumped to their feet, shouting questions in dozens of languages. Cameras swiveled to focus on the Earth delegation. Holographic displays showed Minho's face, magnified for everyone to see. Minho sat frozen in his chair, unable to process what he had just heard. He had answered correctly. Question 99 was about a cat, and he had been right. Professor Daeun materialized next to the stage, her crystalline body refracting the light into rainbow patterns. "Order, please, order!" Her melodic voice somehow cut through the noise. The hall gradually quieted down, though shocked whispers continued. "Perhaps," Daeun said, turning to address Yunji, "you should explain to everyone exactly what question 99 was this year." Yunji nodded, and the holographic display changed to show the image of the creature from the exam. The small furry being with its distinctive markings and graceful movements appeared floating in the air above the stage, large enough for everyone to see clearly. "This," Yunji said, "is what stumped the galaxy." A being that resembled a floating jellyfish raised one of its tentacles. "Examiner Yunji, many of us analyzed that creature extensively. The genetic markers matched nothing in our databases. The biological system seemed contradictory and impossible. How could a human student identify something that our most advanced computers could not?" Yunji pulsed with colors that suggested amusement. "Perhaps we should allow Professor Yuna to explain. She was the one who designed this particular question." A Velkari scientist stepped onto the stage. Yuna was older than Professor Daeun, her crystalline body showing tiny fractures that spoke of great age. She moved slowly but with dignity, her 6 limbs carrying her to the center of the platform. 73 years ago, Yuna began, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, I was part of an observation team sent to Earth. This was before humanity joined the Galactic Coalition, before they even knew we existed. We were studying their planet to determine if they were ready for contact. The holographic display changed to show images of Earth from space, then closer views of cities and wilderness. During our observation mission, we collected samples of various life forms for analysis. We operated carefully, taking only small specimens that would not be missed. One night in a settlement that humans call Sol, we found this creature. Yuna gestured to the hologram of the cat. It was wandering alone near human dwellings. We took it aboard our ship for study. Murmurs spread through the audience. Minho leaned forward, completely absorbed in the story. We cataloged it as Sample 847X and began our analysis. Yuna continued. And that is when things became strange. The creature's biology made no sense. It was clearly a carnivore, evidenced by its teeth and digestive system, yet it could also process plant matter, which carnivores typically cannot do efficiently. It had the body size and behavior of a prey species, yet the eyes and reflexes of a predator. The hologram showed various biological scans and data charts that meant nothing to most of the audience but clearly showed confusion in the research. The creature produced a sound from its chest, a vibration we called purring. We could find no biological purpose for this sound. It was not communication, not a warning, not a mating call. It simply happened when the creature seemed content. But why would evolution create a mechanism that had no survival purpose? Yuna's crystalline face somehow managed to show frustration despite having no recognizable features. Even more bizarre was the creature's behavior toward us. It should have been terrified. We were completely alien beings. Nothing like any predator it would have evolved to recognize. Yet after only a few days it began approaching us voluntarily. It would rub against our limbs. It would present its belly, the most vulnerable part of its body, for us to touch. It seemed to deliberately act in ways that made us want to protect and feed it. Professor Daeun spoke up from the side of the stage. You thought it was attempting behavioral manipulation. Yes, Yuna confirmed. But manipulation implies intelligence, and this creature's brain size suggested only moderate cognitive ability. It should not have been capable of complex social engineering, yet somehow it was making us advanced beings with millions of years of evolutionary development want to care for it. We fed it, we cleaned its waste. We provided it with comfortable places to sleep. And the entire time, we told ourselves we were doing this for scientific study. Some laughter rippled through the audience. We studied sample 847X for 2 years before finally returning it to Earth unharmed. In that time, we conducted every analysis available to Velkari science. We mapped its genome, studied its behavior, analyzed its vocalizations, and observed its interactions. And we could not explain it. The creature was a biological paradox. Yuna paused, looking out over the assembled beings. We concluded that it must be either an artificially created species, or perhaps a survivor from some lost civilization that had genetically engineered it for an unknown purpose. We filed our reports and added the creature to the database of xenobiological mysteries. When I became an examiner for this test 20 years ago, I suggested using sample 847X as the impossible question. Everyone agreed it was perfect because even our best scientists could not identify or explain it. The hall was completely silent now. Every being present was listening intently. Now, Yuna said, let me show you what the human student Minho wrote in his answer. The holographic display changed to show Minho's response. His words appeared in the air, translated into multiple languages simultaneously. The audience read in silence, and Minho watched their reactions change from confusion to surprise to something that looked like wonder. Felis catus, Yuna read aloud. Common name, domestic cat. Planet of origin, Earth. Evolutionary niche, mesopredator and human companion. Primary survival mechanism. Self-domestication through behavioral manipulation of human caretakers. She continued reading Minho's detailed biological description, his explanation of cat behavior, and his analysis of how cats had essentially engineered their own domestication by exploiting human psychology. When she finished, Yuna turned to look directly at where Minho sat. This student identified in minutes what our civilization could not determine in 73 years of study. And do you know why? The question hung in the air, because to him it was not a mystery. It was not an impossible biological paradox. It was a pet. A common, ordinary animal that millions of humans live with every day. Sample 847X, the creature that baffled the greatest minds in the galaxy, is what humans call a house cat. Ambassador Seojin stood up from his seat, his face showing pride and amusement. Professor Yuna, if I may, I have a domestic cat at home. Her name is Luna. She sleeps on my bed, demands food at exactly 6 in the morning, and knocks objects off tables for no apparent reason. I have lived with her for 5 years and never once thought she was particularly mysterious. Laughter filled the hall, but it was not mocking laughter. It was the laughter of beings who suddenly understood the absurdity of the situation. Professor Daeun floated to the center of the stage. This raises a fascinating question. Humans, how many species do you live alongside in this manner? Hyunwoo stood up, consulting his datapad. Domestic cats number approximately 600 million on Earth. Dogs number around 900 million. We also keep birds, fish, reptiles, small mammals, and various other creatures in our homes. Additionally, we have domesticated horses, cattle, pigs, chickens, and many other species for work and food. If we include all species that humans interact with regularly, the number is in the thousands. Shocked murmurs spread through the hall. A Carthan scientist stood up, its ancient face showing deep interest. You are saying that humans regularly coexist with thousands of different species? That you understand their behaviors, their needs, their biological systems? Well, yes, Hyunwoo said, seeming confused by the question. Is that unusual? Extremely, the Carthan replied. Most species interact closely with perhaps 10 to 20 other species on their planet. Humans seem to have an unusual tendency to adopt and care for creatures that serve no practical purpose. This cat, for instance. What function does it serve? Minho found himself standing up, his nervousness forgotten. Cats were originally kept because they hunted rodents that ate our stored grain. But now most pet cats do not need to hunt. We keep them because they are companion animals. They make us happy, make you happy. A Thrasian scientist tilted its head in confusion. You dedicate resources to feeding and housing a creature simply because its presence pleases you emotionally. Yes, Minho said. Humans form emotional bonds with animals very easily. We find them cute, interesting, or comforting. Many people consider their pets to be family members. The assembled beings looked at each other, processing this information. Finally, Dayun spoke again. This explains so much about humanity. Your species has been confusing us since you joined the coalition. You form alliances quickly, you empathize with beings completely unlike yourselves, and you adapt to working with different species far faster than any other first-generation civilization. We thought it was perhaps a deliberate strategy. Now I understand. You have been practicing these skills with the animals of your own planet for thousands of years. Examiner Yoonji pulsed bright with colors that indicated approval. The decennial xenobiology examination is designed to test not just knowledge but perspective, the ability to see what others miss. Minho of Earth possessed knowledge that to him seemed ordinary and simple, but that knowledge was based on a lifetime of experience with biological diversity that most species never encounter. Yuna stepped forward again. I have one more thing to share. After the exam, I reviewed Earth's biological database to verify Minho's answer. Do you know what I found? She paused for effect. Earth has approximately 8.7 million distinct species currently alive. Humanity has identified and cataloged only about 1.5 million of them. You do not even know what lives on your own planet yet, and you are already teaching the galaxy about species we thought were impossible. The hall erupted in applause. Beings from dozens of species rose to their feet, creating a sound like thunder. Minho stood there overwhelmed as thousands of aliens acknowledged what he had done. Ambassador Seojin turned to Minho with a wide smile. Well done, son.